All right, well, welcome. My name is Benjamin Niaulin from Sharegate, and
Christian Buckley with BZ.
all right, and we wanted to talk about. We're sitting down. We did a couple of whiteboards.
We are sitting down.
We
That's
did
right.
some fun videos.
Yeah.
But we wanted to talk about. A lot of things has been talking about moving to the cloud for a long time. I remember SharePoint Conference 12 or 14.
Is that Los Angeles? Is that the one?
There was two back-to-back in Vegas.
Yeah.
And I remember the feedback from the attendees was very negative because it felt like we were shoved down our throats with,
the
SharePoint
cloud.
Online.
You
Office
must be in the
365.
cloud or you're a fool.
Yes, that was essentially what we
Right.
were. And back then it was like, I'll never be in the cloud. And so we wanted to see what is the state of that transition to the cloud and what we're seeing. I mean, we do a lot of conferences. We see a lot of customers, both ours, both outside through conferences, people asking questions, emails and such. So if we do a pulse, what's going on?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of tension.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact numbers are, like percentages of. We used to know that about how many people were between different versions and how many customers were on SharePoint and those kinds of things. We don't really talk about that much anymore. Certainly not about moving to the cloud. But what's interesting, and what we were kind of getting into is, some of my background. I went to work for a company back in February 2001, and it was a very well-funded, VC-funded startup, close to $200 million in funding. I mean, so big, company called E2Open, and was hired as a product manager to help create a cloud-hosted collaboration platform. Sound familiar?
Maybe not.
So went and built that. And what was interesting about that, and I was there for 2.5 years, and for most of that time ran a team going out and doing deployments. And so worked with customers in the U.S., of course, and Canada. Spent a lot of time up in Canada with Nortel and things. Ottawa mostly. I know. And as well as over in Japan, down in the Philippines, and just across Asia Pacific. And a lot of the fears that people had about moving their intellectual property out to the cloud. So they were worried about what is that user experience is going to be like? What is the performance of that cloud environment to be like? If they're doing co-editing, I mean, the limitations of your ability to co-edit versus flying people around the world to do that. But then putting this IP out in this server sitting outside of their domain, it kind of freaked these organizations. These are some of the largest high-tech manufacturing companies in the world that have been doing this kind of collaboration for a long time. So those were things that I ran into. So we, back in 2001, 2002, 2003. And so we started experimenting with things like WAN optimization. So the ability to go in, basically reduce the signal noise on your connection to the internet. But I mean, all of these kinds of things, more than a decade ago. Here we are, early 2016, same issues, same concerns. How do we govern this? How do we apply our compliance and security standards? How do we manage external users? And how do we know what they're doing, the level of activity, and make sure that only the right content is being shared with the right people in the right locations?
So we would
all
just
the same issues.
I mean, it's been one of the hot topics, I would say. Every time somebody said cloud, or are you going to the cloud, the first, I think, you probably have it in your mind right now, and you too, it's security, right? I think it's the almost people that don't want to go to the cloud and don't have any good reason also, they'll just put it on that box and say, yeah, security, and they haven't even checked anything either. So I feel like when we're looking at even today, I feel there's a lot less people
I think
worried about the cloud.
Because honestly, I think that Microsoft has done a tremendous job at going after the certifications, solidifying the story around compliance and security and those things. Not that it's perfect, they're working on a number of things, but it really has to be, when most people bring up those kinds of issues that are against moving to the cloud, you have to look at it a little more clinically. And you have to say, okay, what are the requirements, the standards which we need to manage to? And Office 365 and Azure, they either meet the standards or they don't. And so you have your answer there. If you are required to meet these 5 certifications, and SharePoint Online can do 4 out of the 5, just as an example, you have your answer. No, we don't move. Or we move knowing that there's an impact in that one area and that we're going to manually manage that, and we know that it lacks in this area. So, but you go in with your eyes wide open around that.
Yeah, and I mean, everything's probably, there's a trust center that Microsoft had put into place. Actually, somebody sent me an email, or I forget where it is, LinkedIn, somewhere, asking me the same things, like, where can I find this information? We may be wanting to go to the Office 5, but I want to know, how is it audited? Who does it? And I'm like, everything's the trust center. You can go check it out.
The trust center in the new, that's right.
There's a new, I'm trying to follow all these websites to know how it is. One thing that's funny though, and I want to talk, especially when we're talking about this, is we're talking about people are like, would you go to the cloud? And there's all these reasons why they won't go, especially, security and performance and stuff like that. And then, we're having other discussions for other topics, and then they tell me, they're using Salesforce, they're using Slack, and I'm like, so what is the definition of cloud to you?
Right.
Well, Office 365. Okay. Yeah. So there's also that understanding, right? They're sometimes okay with some companies just because of the name of the brand, right? Mm-hmm. They know that if they want this, they use Salesforce, or they use whatever solution, and then they go on and then it talks about Office 365, and like, no, it's security, no.
Right.
So I think, though today is a very different story. The story I'm talking about is maybe a year or 2 years ago.
Even a year ago, you were hearing that. Yeah. And it has decreased considerably.
Oh, yeah, considerably. So. If I go to conferences these days, we go quite often, and people aren't, when I ask who here is on Office 365, I'm reaching almost 50% of the room sometimes, if not more, depending on the topic, of course, but there's people on Office 365. They don't know what they got or how to use it, and that's another problem that we're looking into and that we're seeing. But in terms of going to the cloud, my feel is that people are going there and they see the value, the cost, right?
I think you need to understand what you're trying to accomplish with the system. This is true in any business platform, SharePoint and Office 365 or other, is understand what you're trying to accomplish there. And I have to be pragmatic about this, that there are some valid use cases for keeping things on-prem.
Oh, of course. And Microsoft understands this today,
They
right?
do, yeah.
We go to
their messaging is greatly improved around that. And there's a lot of talk about hybrid environments now, because they understand that most organizations, even that have a desire to move to the cloud, there's just certain realities. Like, look, the traditional approach to IT is that as you're going out and you're building out a plan for a new platform, that you are building out 3, 5, and 7 year models for paying for it. Saying, like, we need to get this value out of this system that we spent these dollars this time. And then they take a year, 2, 3 years deploying these systems. They can't then just flip a switch and, hey, something new, we're going to move to it. That they need to get that value out of what they've already spent. And one of the great stories about hybrid and Microsoft now looking at where can we bring these cloud experiences down to these on-prem customers that I wouldn't say are stuck on-prem, but have reasons to leave these systems in place.
Workflows, right? We're talking about modalities of collaboration earlier. The different people work differently, and I totally understand that. And I agree, right? There's some things, and I'm thinking of a couple of customers that we have right here in Montreal, where engineering companies that for specific compliance reasons, military export control, they can't have all of their things in the cloud in Office 365. Even if somehow it be compliant, just that culture in the enterprise, those engineering the things that they make cannot just not be somewhere they control.
Right.
And that's their way. However, it doesn't mean that having a video portal that's ready to go, works on mobile devices, but still owned by the organization, could not benefit that organization. It doesn't mean that things like Delve and Groups and OneDrive for Business would not benefit the organization. That you can plug it in. And that's what I tell a lot of the people I see when I look at conferences. I talk to customers now. I'm like, it's not a versus anymore.
Right.
It's not you've got to go to the cloud or you've got to stay on premises and you're bad, because it's not like that. I always say, look, you choose where your SharePoint's going to be. And your SharePoint is going to be either on premises or in Office 365, or both, because they can get connected now. And that's the SharePoint piece. But Office 365 isn't just SharePoint piece, right? You can have the SharePoint piece in Office 365, do your team sites, do whatever you need. And then you have those, they call it experiences, and that's a great marketing buzzword, but they add on these ready-made apps that usually they're inspired from things we've seen, right? The Delve cards for me is like Pinterest boards,
it's a lot of this
planners like Trello.
I think the key for a lot of that, tying a lot of that together, is something that's cloud-based, which is the Office Graph and the Microsoft Graph. It's the being able to tap into the machine learning. Is not something unless you have a huge, massive server infrastructure.
Which is not everyone.
But I mean, we not many in the world, but being able to tap into the power of the Office Graph and being able to leverage the knowledge and the patterns of usage of all of the users within your network, within your system, to learn from those things and then serve up these experiences, these kind of out-of-the-box new features that are part of the cloud. But being able to also connect those to your on-prem environment is just huge. And this is something that I could actually say for Beezy was born out of the idea, the frustration that as more and more social capabilities were being built out, and the bleeding edge of the technology was all out on the cloud, and what was available from a social experience on-prem, 2010 era, was junk. I mean, let's not parse the words here, that the social experience in SharePoint 2010 was flatlined. It was, and so Beezy was created to go and build something that was similar to what was available out through the consumer-based solutions, but for 2010. But even then, the people that are in social collaboration are usually more out at the forefront of things. So I think that there's less resistance. This is just my anecdotal take on things. But people that are more socially collaboration-based, because they're used to using all of these other consumer-based social platforms are out there, they're more ready to move to the cloud than other organizations. But so then we had to go and completely re-architect our product to work with the cloud, with Office 365. And so now we find, in this scenario, just like Microsoft is finding, is that many of our customers are interested in using it in a hybrid environment. And it's actually a great way, and this is a broader topic around user experience.
I think,
right? Having the choice.
You have the choice, you can't say anything
anymore. And leveraging the infrastructure that you've made the investments on, that you need to take the time and move across. So you move at your speed rather than, hey, there's a new version.
Battle. You're not, you don't have to choose one. You look at what you have, what best works for you and your scenario.
I said that. You don't have to choose one. You do.
But essentially, I think if we recap quickly, the state of that transition to the cloud, what we feel I don't feel like
it's speeding up.
It definitely is. It's not. There are worries. There's always concerns, and as also Microsoft likes to say that very often. Millennials are coming as if it's some kind of monster arriving, but as
that's a whole different topic. But yes,
honestly, we're used to different things. Right? People are used to iPhones and YouTubes from 10 years old now.
YouTubes. So. There's more than one YouTube, folks. You heard it here.
YouTube videos. No, but honestly, when we're thinking about the cloud now, and I'm talking to different people, it's like, okay, but however, Office 365 is only in the cloud. Like, you mean like my online banking? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not this.
I think a lot of I think a lot of the irrational fears are being done away with, and instead of being a fear-driven change or transition, that people are understanding it, and it's becoming more of a planned transition.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much. I'm Benjamin Niaulin.
And I'm Christian Buckley.
I'll see you in the next one.